Hello and welcome to another edition of our podcast. I would like to welcome Melia Hord. Melia is a CDRE and she's got an impressive background. She's going to tell us all about it, and she's got some really good takeaway tips for all of you. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Melia. She is with Keller Williams Realty. She's powered by Place, and she comes to us out of Lexington, Kentucky. Melia has been licensed as a real estate agent since 2015. She is also, in addition to being a CDRE, she is also a certified luxury specialist. And she's also part of a network for doctors relocating throughout the country. Melia became a CDRE in February of 2005. She brings a fascinating background. She has got a background in marketing, and prior to that, she worked as a CPA. She's got a degree, a bachelor's degree in accounting. Melia loves to also train. She shares her knowledge that she has amassed throughout her career and all of her experience. She is part of the top 1% of agents in North America. And I really want to shine a spotlight on that, because when you get to be in the elite of the elite, you get to be in rooms with the movers and shakers in the industry. You get access to knowledge and resources and networks that really make you the top of the top. That is what Melia is. So I'm really excited to have you on today, Melia. And then last but not least, Melia also serves on multiple boards and in multiple philanthropic organizations. She's also a big giver. So welcome, Melia. Great to have you. Melia, so talk with us a little bit. You became a CDRE. I mean, you've clearly got this successful business and a very successful background, and you decided to become a certified divorce real estate expert, and you just became a CDRE in February.
Okay.
So what, kind of walk us through that? What inspired you to do this kind of work? Give us a little bit of information on that.
You know, I think real estate, like any business, regardless of what you're in, banking, lending, sales, any business, it's all about relationships. And I've been a big proponent that when I got into real estate, it wasn't about buying and selling homes or helping the clients buy and sell homes. It was really about forming those relationships. And I've always used that, no matter whether it's with a client, with a co-broker, co-agent, or in the different network groups that I'm in, is to form those relationships. And by doing that, I was at a KW symposium conference out in San Diego, and Jill Hennick started talking to me about being a CDRE, and it was fascinating to me, because I believe that when you stop growing and learning, especially in this industry of real estate, your business and your career just goes stagnant. The positive experiences that she had and the positive experience I had with her personally and professionally through the luxury network just seemed like it was a perfect fit. And she fascinated me, and it kind of escalated from there. One conversation led to another. That personality of I'm all in or I'm all out. There's no middle ground. And once I started talking with Catherine and Jill and all of the people at the Alumni Institute, it just seemed like a really natural fit to proceed.
Yeah, and Jill's phenomenal. She's doing amazing work as well. So I'm glad that you all are connected and she brought you to us, because most of our CDREs, our best ones, typically come from other CDREs because they know they're in the rooms, right? They're in the rooms and they also know what it takes. So that is awesome. Tell us a little bit about your structure, your business, and that sort of thing.
Wow, that's been an evolution. I think I was like a lot of people, where I always dreamt about getting into real estate. I talked about it since I was 20 years old and opted to get into the accounting industry, and got into public accounting and became a CPA, and then went into the corporate accounting, corporate America, and became a controller and a division controller, and ran 14 facilities across the nation. It didn't feel like home. And I ran several businesses when I got married and came to Kentucky, but it still wasn't home. And I was kind of pushed into real estate because my husband at the time was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. We had a family business out in Las Vegas that was building 120 brownstone units right off the strip that had plummeted. And I felt like all the stars have aligned, like, now is your time to do this. I got into real estate almost as if it was my last stop. I want to be paid what I'm worth. I did the corporate America where I worked 18-hour days and felt like I was always working to earn my check for the next day, and I was only as good as what I did yesterday. And I knew that it was a do or die kind of situation because I am in Kentucky with no family here. I was burnt out on corporate America and the hours. I ran my own businesses, and now it was, let's do it. So when you get into something and you want to be really good, you got to figure out what that big why is. And my big why was I needed to get paid what I was worth. What could I do if I was left as a single mom with 2 growing boys? And what would bring me some fulfillment? And I wanted to be around people. I didn't want to be behind a desk. I wanted to be able to make a difference. I wanted to be able to leave a legacy, not only for my family, but for my community and for the people around me that I cared about. So I jumped into real estate, literally got my license, took the accelerated class in 2 weeks, spent a week studying, passed the test, and then realized that I really need to figure out what came next because I didn't know. I didn't know what the average agent made. I didn't know what the average agent, how many units they sold. I didn't know anything about the different brokerages. And I had to stop and pause and spend time interviewing brokerages to learn the fact that it had to be a partnership when I got into a brokerage. And that led me to KW. And I was hungry. I hadn't had a check in 3 months. And in real estate, it takes 30 days, sometimes 60 days to actually close a transaction. But I remember it was 5 months to the day that I got my first check, and I vowed that I would never go another month without a check. But in that, I also realized that getting a check wasn't about me. It was making sure that I did my job and I served my clients in order to deserve the honor of receiving that check. That's how it started. It started one step at a time, really being in a town where I didn't have family to rely on. I didn't have anyone that was in the industry. I just knew that the relationships that I had formed with my prior businesses would help me get into a new industry, and the people would know that whatever I did, I would do it well. I would honor them, and I would honor the process of that. For me, real estate really saved me. It saved my life. It saved my family's life. It gave me an opportunity to wake up every day jumping out of bed and happy to have my feet hit the floor. It gave me the opportunity to help people in a capacity that I never dreamt I would be able to help them. And it also brought my family into wealth building years that I never felt I would ever achieve.
So you went, to start a real estate business in a new city without a network that's phenomenal. And in 10 years, you've risen to the top 1% nationwide.
And you're right. When I look at it, and I think what a lot of us, especially in our community that are very high drivers and very servant heart driven, is we forget to celebrate the small wins. We only look at the things that we didn't do well as opposed to the things that we did do well. And I didn't have the luxury to stop and really celebrate the wins along the way because I was so driven, 1, to get us out of debt, 2, to start this career, 3, to build a business, and to earn the respect of the community, both as an agent and as a co-agent. So I didn't celebrate that really until the last couple of years because I was always just putting my head down, trying to do the next, relationship. But what I have found in this business is that if you come from a part of compassion and a servant heart, and you're willing to do the things that others aren't every single day, even when you don't see the results, there's nothing but success that can follow you. A lot of people look at it now like you're so lucky and you're so successful. And I look at them and I said, God prepared me for this a long time ago through 47 years of hard stuff and challenges, so that when I got to this point, I would have the compassion as well as the passion and the tenacity and the perseverance to not let the little stuff bother me, but to keep my eyes focused on the vision of where things could go for the client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's, that saying that everyone wants to be part of the outcome, but they
Oh,
don't want to be part of the journey
that's
that
right.
leads you to the outcome, right?
Oh, yeah. We see that with building a team.
Hmm.
When I started 10 years ago with KW, the team concept was pretty new. There was a lot of chatter about whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. Right now in our industry, you see that 85% of the deals that are done now are done through a team concept because
Hmm.
our society and our world demands immediacy. They
Everything
demand,
now.
yeah, pronto. They want awareness.
Hmm.
The technology is faster than most can keep up with. So that team concept of partnering with people to work your business along their business is very profound. But I didn't know how to do it. So, along the way, probably my first 6.5 years, I was trying to follow what other people were doing, but there really wasn't a good model, and there weren't the systems, and there weren't the training and the playbooks to be a good team leader. And that's why place was so important to me. It gave me those
Hmm.
tools and resources so that I learned that being a good partner with my teammates instead of being a team leader was much more important to create a
Hmm.
culture that everybody could build success on.
It's really come in and filled a huge need, like you said, that has evolved over the last 10 to 12 years in the industry. When you look back at how the real estate industry used to function, it's been completely turned on its head. But slowly over time, and I don't know that any of us really took a minute and have stopped to think about what real estate used to be like, before syndication, before all of these things, even before the information age, where buyers and sellers are knowledgeable now. I mean,
That's
they're
right.
very, very knowledgeable. They have access to information immediately, and everyone wants everything immediately. So that is awesome, and certainly there's a place for that, definitely. So with regards to becoming a CDRE, and so you went to a conference in San Diego, you were speaking with Jill Heineck out of Atlanta, she was sharing her experience and so forth. You decided that this was going to be an avenue that you wanted to pursue, and I can see how your background and your working through the struggles and reaching triumph, you really bring a lot of value to people who are going through their darkest hour. Tell me a little bit about how did the training, because clearly you applied to become a CDRE. We only accept about 12% of all of the applicants. You applied, you went through all of the training, and now you've gone out into your community. You're making some excellent connections to bring all of your knowledge to your community, which is clearly a pattern, Malia, of what you do. You gather knowledge, you go and you put it to use and you share it back. So how would you say that this process that you started when you started it November, December,
November.
how would you say that this has impacted your business?
So many ways. The application process, I didn't know, again, getting like in real estate, when I started this process, I didn't really know what to expect. And it was very comprehensive. The application process, the vetting process, the interview process, which I really appreciate because I've been in partnerships, my family with our Vegas property. I've built a townhome community here with a partner, and they didn't end well. Places taught me a lot about the partnerships, so I watched how the Institute vetted me through that process, and that was much important to me. I feel it was important on your end
Mm-hmm.
because when you get into a partnership, it has to work from both sides. It can't be one-sided. And I always look at the expectations and the standards of what you're accepting, as well as the commitment from my end to uphold those standards and expectations to be a good partner. So it was a good journey. It also was during that time I was also going through my own personal divorce, which I would not recommend to anybody to do that at the same time. But looking back on it, it also brought so much clarity, comfort, and peace into the process that I was going through, and understanding from the family law aspect and the education that you guys just poured into us. The checklists and the processes were so well thought out and so accessible that I saw firsthand how I could take this position and this designation and be such an asset to other people going through this. It made me excited going through a bittersweet time, and it brought so much hope during that time to say, I can really make a difference in our community. Our community is really small. It's a beautiful southern city. I always tell people, when you move here, it's very hard to get into that inner circle because they're very close knit. When I first moved here, someone told me it doesn't matter how good you are or what you do or what you offer. If you don't know the people, they'll never use you. I really took that advice and poured it into the community, and that's why we got advantage and opportunity on the boards and getting involved in our chambers and the different associations, so that people would not only know how good I was as a businesswoman or at what I did, but they knew how good I was in my heart. And that I would pour back into the community. By doing that, I built this community around me that when we announced it, they just embraced what the designation was. It brought the curiosity of what it was and how I could be an instrumental role to not only make the attorneys better, to offer help to the community that so desperately needs this. And I think every community desperately needs CDREs there to bridge those gaps that are in this process.
What would you say to a realtor who wants to get into the divorce niche? Because realtors, especially in this market, and I feel like I say that all the time, especially in this market, but nevertheless, we are in a time of this industry where listings and sales are really at low levels, comparatively speaking, in the last decade. And so we have a lot of interest for our designation, for our program. What would you say to someone who is looking to become a divorce specialist or to get into the divorce niche?
I see around our community and other communities that people will promote themselves as a divorce specialist. And I think there's such a difference with the CDREs because of the process and the training and the education that you have accumulated through the 3 months, and how you have really brought the family law insight into that training and education. This isn't for the faint of heart. I believe everyone can do real estate. Everyone can be a real estate agent, but not everybody should. It's not about getting to the closing table and getting a commission check. It's truly helping someone being able to deliver the dream of homeownership, whether they're going into the next home, buying their first home. This is their biggest financial asset. It may not be the biggest one of their lifetime, but right now it's the biggest one. And when you're going through a divorce, it's not about selling the home, the house. It's about closing the memories. It's about closing the experiences. It's about the moments that were in the walls with the kids and the family and the ex-spouse. It was about building dreams and hopes that are now shattered. Divorce doesn't have to be nasty, but I think there's the assumption that it always will be. And there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of mixed emotions that go in from both sides, even in the best of divorces. Like, I feel like we had a very amicable one, but there was so much emotion that if it wasn't intentional on both parts to make it amicable, it could have gotten very ugly. When agents get into that, they have to look beyond the opportunity of having the listing, because it's inevitable that that listing will be sold, but it's about how can I make this process for these two human beings as compassionate and as easy and as neutral and as helping mitigate the conflict that's there, so that both feel they're represented in a very trying time. And agents really have to understand this process. You got to walk with, the faint of heart here. You've got to walk tenderly, but yet you've also got to be fierce and stern. Being fierce and stern with compassion isn't easy.
Those two can be sort of opposing,
Oxymorons,
opposing
huh?
oxymorons, exactly. And yet you're absolutely right. There can be a compassionate sternness or a compassionate fierceness. We see that in parenthood, right? We see it a lot in parenthood. Melia, you bring quite a perspective having recently gone through your own divorce.
Yes.
You've got the perspective of a realtor, you've got the perspective of a CDRE, and you've got the perspective of being a divorcing woman. What would be 2 to 3 things that you think, now that you know what you do, that you think divorcing homeowners need to know?
They need to know that conflict can be mitigated by a neutral party that has the best interest for both parties, right? Because when you're divorcees, typically 9.5 out of 10 times, there are opposing counsels. And although the opposing counsels want to work together, at the end of the day, they both have billable hours. Having someone that truly is neutral, that both parties are going to speak to and have communication with, is so essential to feel like someone's got your back and is going to protect you through this process. And the other thing I would tell divorcing couples or people going through this process is there are agents out there that truly do have your best interests at heart, that are highly trained, aren't just in to get the house sold and be done, but truly want to educate you, hold your hand through this process, and have you make those decisions to the best of the court documents so that you both can walk away knowing that someone was there to help you get through one of the most challenging emotional times in your life.
That's excellent. So divorcing homeowners need to know that there is someone out there that does this, that can be that person for them. This is our, what we'll end with this. What would you say 2 to 3 things family law attorneys should know about real estate?
First, they should know that there is a program called the CDREs, that we are highly trained to be neutral and unbiased and be able to be a partner in the relationship with the clients to enact those property settlement agreements. Factors on the real estate side that a lot of the attorneys don't realize or the lenders don't realize that can't happen because, at least in the state of Kentucky, we follow statutory real estate law when you're under contract or when you own property. And there's certain things that even though a judge may say has to happen, from the real estate end, it can't happen, or it's not as easy to make that happen. So being a resource to the attorneys to help them with, title and legal descriptions and helping them with values before this whole property settlement agreements get finalized is such a huge asset. They also, our education that we offer attorneys, on a monthly basis between, our Raising the Bar, our Lunch and Learns, the seminars that we can offer to educate them on the real estate ins and outs so that when they're talking with the couples or their client from the initial onset consult all the way through the divorce process, we have education that can start from the beginning when they meet with the client for them to say, hey, let's get you paired with somebody that can really help us through this process. Let's learn from different lessons of the cases that have come before you so that we can avoid those pitfalls and it doesn't become more emotional. And then to know that, there are real estate agents out there that are highly trained that can help with the divorce listing to make sure that it's fair, equitable, neutral, unbiased, and that this agent will actually help make this process less cumbersome, emotional, and conflict driven because they understand how the law side dictates on it, but they also have that background of the real estate, so they can merge them together and make a perfect collaboration for everybody.
So divorce attorneys need to know that CDREs exist and inform the client that a CDRE is an option, right? Number 2, understand that real estate has its own set of laws, legalities, guidelines, compliance, and sometimes reports and decisions, agreements are made that sound good in that vacuum. However, when they need to be put into practice, they can end up violating things, or they may not be able to. It could be an impossibility. And then number three, to plug into all of the education and the resources that you provide as a CDRE. So those are excellent. Well, Melia, I appreciate you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit about your story with us and some good nuggets and information that everyone who's watching this can take away. So thank you very, very much. And we're glad you're part of our CDRE family.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be such a great part. It's been a wonderful community. So far, it's been a great experience. And let me say one thing. For people that are out there going through this process, a lot of times they'll go because the resources are out there, right, with the internet, to see what a top agent is, or agents can pay to be SEO driven or whatnot. I would highly recommend that if you're in this situation, Google CDRE. Look for a certified divorce real estate expert, someone that has been trained and is knowledgeable on both sides of the equation, real estate and family law, and do your homework to find the right person to pair with, because we're doing our homework to make sure that the family law community in our area knows about us, so that we can be a great resource, not only for them, but for you as someone going through this. So perception isn't always reality, and make sure you do your homework and find the right person to help you through this process with your real estate.
Excellent. Excellent advice. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for the honor of being on your podcast. What a great honor.
absolutely. Absolutely.